All right, I'll go ahead and call our meeting to order. Thank you for everybody for being here. This is going to be our last official meeting. For myself, it's been an honor to be able to work with everybody here, to be able to craft what we're getting ready to send forth and even add to be able to at least, and to start off the process with whoever the firm will be able to pick it up from here and the changes and how they work with that. From my experiences that are, less than, a few years, Jason's got more experiences, but when you go into an RFP, RFQ process and you're interviewing for jobs, if the group already has a lot of stuff taken care of and they have the better ideas, it really helps you, gives you a lot of time to really dive into those and everything, and has a really good concept and stuff. So I think we have a really excellent concept that we've been able to develop. So first of all, let's do the approval of the minutes of December 19th.
Motion to approve.
Move. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? All right. Introduction to our guests, as always. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you all. I know this is the last chance we're going to have to see everybody. So a heartfelt thank you to each and every one of you that has served so diligently. It means a lot to the veteran community. We've kept the VFW and the American Legion Post informed of your great work, and we've got nothing but wonderful, wonderful feedback from everybody, and we appreciate it so much. Thank you, thank you.
Thanks for the way it's going right now. I'll be the commander of the VFW next year.
Well, congrats.
In 1 year.
Okay, so we want to, item number 4 is discussion and action on potential concept for future comprehensive Veterans Memorial. So are we needing to?
So basically, here's where you guys are on this. You've spent a lot of time on it and tweaked and tweaked and tweaked. I sent a link to everyone. Hopefully, I know Janice, you had some issues with being able to get it open. Were other people able to open up
No,
the
I
link?
could open it. I wanted to print some out.
Okay.
Because, I mean, by looking on it, it's kind of hard, but like I couldn't get the pictures to print.
I see. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I thought you were asking me to print all the pictures for everybody, and I just decided I wasn't going to do that. Saving city money, your taxpayer dollars. So Jason sent 13 images. We really, I think, just need to review that, and it may be quickly if you don't have any more changes at this point. And if you're happy with where you are, you'll just go ahead and choose to vote that this is the concept that you want to present to City Council.
Jason, do you want to talk about anything that changed from?
Basically, all I did was, and you can see by looking at the site plan there, I went ahead and added the ramps that we talked about. I think that was the only change that we had from our last discussion. And it turns out that those worked out perfectly. I mean, we had
Really?
the exact length that we needed, so
Cool.
it worked out pretty nicely. There's some details, like you mentioned, that the firm that gets hired is going to have to kind of work through some of that.
Right.
But I think we've given them a good, broad suggestion for what we think is a good
Right.
solution.
Yeah.
So
You may go ahead and scroll through these and
If anybody has any questions or has anything, please speak up. That's what we're here for now.
and you can kind of narrate,
yeah,
Jason.
that's looking, I guess it'd be northeast, 33rd on the far end, the events plaza, down at the bottom, and then there's the area for the statue or work of art, I guess, that can be commissioned. And then that's standing on the east side of the causeway, looking back to the west.
And by the way, thank everybody at the firm for doing this, because from a initial concept, you don't get this at all. This is usually paid for and everything. So for them to say, yeah, we'll help you out on this this firm needs a big thank you for this and stuff.
Take Jason to lunch, right?
It's fun. It's fun. I enjoy doing stuff. Again, just looking to the north down the events plaza. And that's the main memorial area. I guess if you're looking southeast.
So what is on the wall right there? What are people going to be looking at on that wall?
That's just an area where, we talked a little bit about the way the names would be displayed or if they would be displayed. It's just an area that it's a mountable system, so it's not permanent, so they can take it down and we change it within the it's really the same view with just some God rays, just warm and fuzzy kind of. At the main entrance, I've added, there was a discussion about softening up the area between the existing trails and the lawn area, and so I've added a little bit more landscaping and just a little bit more detail. That's looking underneath the covered area, the restrooms to the right and left, and there's a gated area here where it's an option that the city can talk about if they want to close it off or shut it off. They can do that. Same view, just pulled back a little bit further, the drop off for larger vehicles, buses, and things of that nature. Just another area. And that also kind of shows where the trailheads are.
Did you want me to go back? Sorry.
Either one's fine.
Yeah, they're very similar.
Where I'm assuming that the trail that's there now will probably get beat up, and it's just an asphalt trail, so it'll probably be replaced, but it'll have to tie into that new plaza area, so it's just kind of showing that detail. Another view, aerial looking to the northeast. And that's the dog or canine memorial, I guess.
Working dog.
And that is, if we go back, can you see that on any of these?
You can actually see it on the very
The very first one?
first one, I believe.
Yeah, so it's,
Right there.
Yeah.
they snuck it back into here.
Yeah, that area slopes down, so we'll either ramp or slope. That may have to, if it's an ADA thing, it may have to have a switchback or something. That's a detail that I think would have to be kind of worked out, but
Yeah.
trying to get a little closer to the water, down into the trees a little bit.
What is that again, Jason?
That's the dog memorial.
The dog memorial?
Yeah, the working dog. So then this comes down to here.
Yeah, it's the connection to the water, and then the connection to the neighborhood is to the top right. Little extension, the addition to the parking off to the south.
I'm so sorry. I've been around jet engines too long. I can't hear a word you're saying.
This is about as loud as I can speak. I'm sorry. Well, I was just kind of pointing out the different areas. Matt, I mean, you can.
Yeah, so right here, the extension back into the neighborhood, so this is a street that's just kind of, they never finished it. And there's a little pedestrian, we're gonna put something a little pedestrian there, so no cars, but if you're walking or riding your bike and stuff, you can enter here from the neighborhood. And then down through here is just to be able to access the pond. And so some of the things that we did discuss was, if it is a multiple phase, that maybe future down the road that they redo around the pond. And that would create something, but to put that in here right now, that might draw focus away from what we're really wanting right here. And so that can be phased out in the future, and they can tie that in. They can figure all that stuff out. That's their job. And then part of it too is, as you can see here, extending this parking lot down here to get us some more parking. The only thing is going to be is because the slope grade here that comes up is how much is that going to cost to bring in the extra dirt and all the fill.
In the budget, I think Stan had plugged in just a kind of resurface. That
Okay.
Not a new parking lot, but just
Yeah. And if you weren't here for that, when he said Stan Lingo Construction, who redid the Sandridge building, a bunch of other stuff, it's a really great construction company. Jason was able to actually get a bid from him, or not a bid, but an estimate, excuse me, just kind of rough costs and stuff, and that came out to be, was it 3.5?
3.3, I think.
Yeah, about 3.5
That was
million.
before we added the ramps.
Right,
And-
right.
And I did talk to Stan, by the way. I talked to him last week, asked if he, and sent him the new model, and he said he would give us a revised estimate,
Okay.
including the ramps.
Okay.
before-
For presentation, yeah. So we have one of the top local general contractors around here who's giving us a really good price on that and stuff to take a look at for everything. Because we don't want to get down the road a little bit and then all of a sudden it goes out to bid and they come back and they say it's $5 million.
I think,
We're calling the firm and telling them to chop stuff. So.
the way he priced it, I think he was somewhat conservative. I mean, I don't think he gave us a great deal, or I think he tried to be as
Right.
accurate as possible, because he understands that it's going to get bid, you know, so
Right.
I think he was trying to get the most accurate
Right.
estimate good.
And after looking over it, I think it's probably about dead on. I mean, they know how to do all this stuff.
Well, yeah, and he's just got a good eye for design.
Yeah.
I think that's why he's a good, person to start with.
And for you guys that weren't here, Stan's background, he's actually a structural engineer. And a lot of his employees aren't exactly, they have a construction background, but he also gets a lot of architects to come and work into his office as well. And everything in Midtown, being on the Midtown Redevelopment Board of Directors, he did all the construction for pretty much everything in Midtown. So if you want to, was there any questions about any of the images? Anybody want to see something?
What's the statue gonna be there on the south end?
That we're gonna what that'll probably end up being is we just say, we have a statue, put a line item budget in there for $20,000, and when they put out, for solicitation to artists, they've got to come up with their ideas and keep it within the budget. And then you go through and you say either, no, hey, I like these two, can we see a little bit more of this? And then you whittle it down and you award it.
Yeah, I think that's another opportunity for public art. You
Yeah.
know, the city could commission that separately, and so the statue itself was not included in the budget.
No,
There's a placeholder in the picture, if you're asking what was in the picture,
Yeah.
that's just a placeholder.
just a place,
Okay.
just a thing. So what that evolves, obviously that takes art commission, public
Oh, yeah.
input, that's a pretty
I
big
mean, that
process.
could also be another donor opportunity.
Yeah.
As well, so.
So is there anything else? Anybody? Okay.
Good.
Do I hear a motion to, that as it sits now, this is what we are going to present to City Council? Sergeant Major has a
Second?
I'll second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, well, so thank you all. And again, Jason, thank you very much for all your hard work and everybody, who helped you out with that at the office and stuff and the rendering. I know that takes a lot of time and everything, because when you set the renders, you turn it on, you have to wait a couple hours to find out whether or not it looks right or not and stuff, so thank you, appreciate it.
Well, and just to be clear, this is a team effort.
Yeah.
We all had input, and it took us, this time to get to that point, so it's a group effort, I don't want to.
Thank you, though. And thank you to everybody for all your input, going all the way back from when we were, and Casey, thank you for all your work and everything, for getting all the emails out and dealing with all the lists and whittling stuff away. All right. So now we're going to move on to the next item, which is discussion on potential budget and funding sources for future comprehensive Veterans Memorial.
So you guys have already talked about budget. I think ballpark right now, you're roughly 3.5 million.
Yeah.
So until you get another estimate, that's the placeholder that we'll have. Once Jason gets a response on that, we'll kind of figure that out for the presentation. So depending on what your perspective is, it's a big number or it's a small number. I don't know what your thoughts were coming into this, but I think ultimately you don't have to get too terribly down into the weeds into every little funding thing, but I think this is a good opportunity for you to discuss as a group to formulate a list that can be submitted as part of what you're going to give to council. So just say, hey, we've spent some time. These are potential funding sources that maybe can be broken out into public sources, private sources, grant opportunities, those sorts of things. I think where the real value is for you guys to pass on, hey, these are the things that we found in our research, for that when that time comes, whoever is appointed to that task will have a good resource to get started.
And I have a list, it's got about 12 different things on it. One of them's pretty significant,
Okay?
in probably the hundreds of thousands
Okay?
range.
Yeah. And so,
I don't have it with me.
no, that's fine. You could still email it. The presentation is still not until February 25th.
Right.
The way that it's anticipated that will go, that's at 4 p.m. Matthew will give that presentation. He has about 30 minutes roughly to present. I don't know if you'll need 30 minutes or not. Jason will probably drive the computer at that time and kind of walk everyone through. And then council's going to ask questions as well. So there's some time to get that turned if you weren't able to get any of that submitted, or if you still want to spend some time looking there's still an opportunity to do that. Just because you can no longer meet after January doesn't mean that you can't keep looking and having some input. And then if you can get all that to me, I'll format that, compile it all into one document and one resource. So, but right now is probably your opportunity to kind of talk through any of that anybody wants to discuss.
Did you get what I sent?
Yes. Did you want me to pull that up?
No,
or-
no, I just wanted to be sure you got it.
Yes, I did.
Okay?
Is that on funding?
No,
Yeah, I sent it to you too.
To me too? Did you send it to my Bacchus Payne email? I'm no
Yeah,
longer-
probably his old email address, I bet.
Whatever was on the list.
Yeah, that's old.
Let me take you into the
so the
depth, into
3.5,
the depths of my
we want
email.
to split that, 1/3 city funding, 1/3 private funding, 1/3 grants and corporate sponsorships. How do we, I mean,
Sorry.
is there a theoretical breakdown of how it should be?
Or how do we know what the city's going to?
Well, that's,
Well, we don't know. We don't
But that's- I
know.
think what you're saying is we got to do a starting point. So that I say, hey, third, because a lot of the things is a lot of the, sitting on a couple previous boards is they'll donate money. They have no problem doing that, but they're going to match what somebody else puts in. They're just not going to say, hey, I'll just come here and I'll write you a check. They want to know what else is, make sure everybody else has skin in the game, especially from a city standpoint. So the city, yes, I mean, besides obviously donating the land, I guess, and even though it's a park, but there's something involved in that. Because, like we said earlier, is if there is a trust that's set up for maintenance, then the city has to deed some kind of something over
Well,
to the trust.
I
I'm not
think
sure.
without getting into all of that,
But,
Brad brings up a good point of it would probably be best to, when you present this, to say, the task force thinks that funding this should be broken out in this way. And we think so much should be private funding, so much should be public funding, that sort of thing. I think that's probably a good approach, without saying, city, you're gonna give this amount specifically, but maybe talking more in percentages.
yeah, I like the third, and then what happens is if those goals are met by the private and the institutional or anything else like that, then we can drive down the city funds, obviously. We can say, no, scale it back, or say, no, we need you, if we save you $200,000, we'd like for that money to actually be put into like an ongoing maintenance fund, anything like that, so.
This is, Anita, would you mind just kind of talking a little bit about what you said? Can you read that?
No, and I
Okay.
didn't print it out.
Well, I can read through, and
Yeah, you
I
can
think
read.
the reason I want to do this is a good example maybe of kind of what we're looking for. So if everyone has some of these sorts of things, just send them over, we can compile them all. So one was the Bob Woodruff Foundation, invest in programs to support post 9/11 impacted veterans, service members, their families, and caregivers.
Does everybody know who he is? He was a reporter that was blown up in Iraq.
Yeah. National Endowment for the Arts, I think you said that one maybe was a little bit of a stretch, depending on their criteria.
Yeah, if you incorporate visual art into the design, then you can tap into some of these art in public places.
Right.
So that might be a stretch, but
And I'm sure, and the state has some other grants that I know through the
Yeah.
state funding and everything too.
yeah,
for
I
arts
started
program.
off with the national ones. I get a weekly email through the Oklahoma Museum Association.
Mhm.
And that lists all of the government grants that are currently open in different categories, and it's updated
Yeah.
every week with new ones.
And there's a lot of those within the national, that, I remember talking with some people, with Robert Kinzel with the City of Oklahoma City on some stuff that you wouldn't think would qualify, but you do, and everything, so.
And a
there's-
lot of them are looking at public-private partnerships,
Mhm.
with community involvement, government involvement,
Right,
and some of them are matching and some of them are not.
yeah.
It just depends on the particular one.
A couple more that are in here. The Kessler Foundation, that one was a little different. It's support non-traditional solutions and increase employment outcomes for individuals with disabilities. I think you made a statement thinking if there was some way to employ disabled vets.
Yeah, we talked about maybe the art piece was created by a veteran,
Well,
or,
We can, I don't know how that would work with Stan. Could he have his subs? Could he find subs that are certain, because we obviously don't want to get into like a Davis-Bacon type thing. But at the same time, like, can we, and do you think he can ever do that, as saying, hey, is there a way that he, I mean, if he knows anybody that's like,
I mean, if he gets selected as the general contractor, I'm sure he's got some connections that he could probably look around.
yeah, I mean, they could maybe go after some 8A, you know, contractors and stuff, and I know there's some veteran-known stuff around here too, you know, whether it's just the site grading, some landscaping stuff like that, I'm sure that we can we could ask that in the proposal that'll go out for bid, when they respond and say, hey, you know, part of this is, when you're putting in your price, is we would kind of like for you to be able to, you know, have some subs that are veterans and everything like that.
These are just examples of ones that are active right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
happen to have
so,
come in.
and that's why I wanted to bring it up, not saying these are all the perfect ones,
Right.
just to give you an example.
What's out there?
Jarrett, does the university with all their veteran stuff, I'm assuming they probably get through the grants office and the foundation, they probably see opportunities that come in and potentially have ideas and ways to partner as well, I
Yeah.
guess.
I mean, and right now, that's kind of, as you were talking about, that's kind of the grant process, is to try to look and leverage public-private partnerships across the way. I mean, and so many of them are looking for either in-kind, right, or not in-kind, but they'll match, right? Say if you can get this much, then we'll get, so I mean, most of the grant pieces would be exactly along those lines, I think.
And then I think I listed some local ones that,
You got the Kirkpatrick Foundation in there, the Margaret Annis Boys Trust, which actually already
did
has
the Arboretum.
has donated to the Arboretum at that park.
And they do landscaping and parks and that kind of
Yes.
thing.
Merrick Foundation, Cox Community Grants. You know, my previous life before working for the city, when I was at the university, was fundraising and grants as well. And I think what you're going to find is you're always going to find way more opportunities than you're actually going to apply for, or that you're actually going to have a real shot at. But that's a big part of it, is just getting out and doing the research and turning up all the couch cushions and seeing what you can find anywhere. And you never know where you might find the right match. So
I'm sure we can get some from Folds of Honor, you know, and the 179 Foundation, because one of the gentlemen who's going to have a plaque on there was in the 179 from Edmond. So, and I'm sure there's something within the 45th too, that will, I know I've talked to the colonel, the brigade commander, or battalion commander for 179. He's all in, and he's looking forward to seeing this. And Colonel Hendrick wants to pass on to his predecessor kind of what's going on with this type of stuff to help boost, you know, with the community and everything. And I'm sure General Thompson would be all over this and stuff. So.
We will have a really high-resolution animation to go with it that will help with fundraising, you know, so we can
Yeah.
send a link out or do whatever we need to do to kind of
Yeah.
help with that.
And if that's also too, is where we set up, like, you know, we do a website, people can donate, you know, $10 here, $20 there, whatever and stuff. And I was talking earlier, is if you kind of look at the one in San Diego, one thing that they do is they just leave it open. So if you go on now, I mean, it's already been paid for and stuff, and most all the plaques are already taken up, but it's just like an ongoing, like somebody I noticed the other day made a donation in honor of their grandfather's 100th birthday. Right? So because he's on that wall there in San Diego, so they just donate, you know, people just ongoing, and then that just goes to like the maintenance fund, the place. But I mean, those types of things can be set up and everything to where you could even say, I'm going to donate. I want it to go to a general fund, a maintenance fund, or to, like you said, if we are able to get, you know, some kind of interactive media there, where, you know, you type in somebody's name or it scrolls through and shows pictures, you type on it and tells their story and everything. That software obviously will have to be upgraded over time. So then that's a kind of a, you know, we call it, you know, like if we want to say a living wall or a living memorial type thing fund, where that can be individually just kind of money just put into that and everything. So, and those things will be discussed within, once we get down into the group and everything.
So I think really what would be great is if everyone could really maybe spend some time on this in the next week, and then by the end of next Friday, just email me anything that you've come up with, and then we can compile, because I'll be meeting with Matthew to kind of put together help him put together the presentation. So that would be ideal, is if you could just kind of plan on that, any research, and it doesn't just have to be grants. If you're like, hey, I know that this corporation is owned by a veteran or run by a veteran and may have an affinity for this type of project, those are all
Citizens
opportunities
Bank.
as well. So ideally, if you guys are comfortable with that, if you could email that to me by the end of next week, then I can work on getting that all compiled and put together in a logical way for the presentation.
But do we want to go ahead and throw out some public funding ideas now for the city? I mean,
Absolutely.
like the peace statue, when they were building that, they sold desktop castings, I guess? Limited edition
The
castings?
Parks Foundation, every time the Parks Foundation does a statue, like West Edmond oil field, Russell Doherty, the new one up at UCO, the Ida Freeman, every time they do that, they do the small maquettes, and they
Right.
sell those for $2,500, and that's how they
And how
don't
do they, how
pay.
many do they, how many, let's say 20, what do they, 50, 100? What do they
No,
kind
I
of?
don't think they do that many.
No.
Okay.
It's more like.
They're probably maybe 5 or 10,
Yeah.
would be my guess, is what they're doing.
Well, stuff like that, or even, let's say we were to take the render to the next step, right? And I mean, just really, blow it away, is that you get a nice framed, of the render and everything and stuff, maybe, and that's, how much ever, and it's mounted and, and it's put on a glossy back, those type of images, type of stuff from where.
Well, but realistically, depending on how this ends up being funded, you'll probably have some sort of way to honor and recognize those people at the memorial.
Right, yeah, and there'll be those, yes, I mean, obviously like the plaques and stuff, and I think on the backside of the entrance, as you walk in through there, I think there, and then maybe if it's even on the sides of, when you walk up for the ADA ramps and everything, but I know that one thing that was earlier discussed was that we didn't want sponsorship inside the depressed area. We don't want somebody to walk in there and just say, hey, I'm gonna throw this down. That is gonna be reserved for for what we come up with is obviously the KIA, if you have a Medal of Honor, and if it, Purple Hearts, the levels and those will be decided. And then through the memorial itself, if there's, because of the landscaping, if you want to buy a couple trees and stuff and have a plaque, and if maybe even and those benches that you have right there in the reflecting area, if those, we can kind of put those up for sale, but that has to be, it's not like a corporation will buy it, a family, we'll leave those to like certain families, if you want to, you can buy one of those or something. So.
Now, speaking about the sponsorships, I don't want to make it look like a NASCAR or a
Right.
soccer field. Well, I was thinking glass blocks, 10-inch glass blocks, and you etch the name of this corporate sponsor along the bottom of the block, and use those somewhere in the Welcome Center to create just screens. And I don't know, with LED lighting, they could probably be lit, so even at
Oh.
night they glow and you'd still be able to read
Yeah.
the names. But, they're probably easily to change out in case,
Yeah.
a name gets added, we take a blank block out, put a new etched block in, I don't know. I just didn't want signs,
Right, yeah,
Chesapeake.
no, I mean, it would all be, I mean, I think that's part of that will be the drive of the consultants who have obviously probably, hopefully have done some of this, so they'll present some ideas, say, hey, look, here's some tastefully done plaque signage, and they'll be, whenever they create it, part of that's gonna be as an ongoing living document that says, this is the font that gets used, this is the size of it, so they'll create kind of a standard that's what it is. And that's what stays through there, so doesn't matter if you donate $1 million or you just buy if it's the $2,000 plaque, your font is the same size, same letterhead all the way through and everything, so.
I have kind of a wild thought, and this would kind of keep stuff like that from happening. And I don't know how early the schools pick their choices, but what if we got all 3 of the high schools to go in together for Swine Week, Balto, and Double Wolf Dare Week next year?
There's stuff that says we can, I think that's a
Right.
good idea.
they've never all three gone together on one.
My understanding that, in my experience with them, is each school does their own application
Right.
and selection process. They do have a common thread. That tends to be how they give to things like that. I'm not saying they wouldn't, I'm not trying to say no, but just in my experience, they tend to all pick their thing and then they're like, okay. So I could see for sure the common thread one.
And I know that they stopped picking people back when I was in high school
Mm-hmm.
because we had a guy that was one of our classmates that
Right.
misused money or whatever, but.
Yeah, I think any of those opportunities you definitely want to look into, for sure.
Definitely,
Can you explain what you were talking about?
Each
Because I
of-
didn't go to high school here.
So I didn't either, but each of the Edmond high schools does a significant philanthropy.
Memorial does Swine Week.
They do,
North does,
yeah, significant philanthropy
Alto.
fundraising.
It's the last week of February.
Throughout the year.
And it started at Memorial, where
Okay.
they'd raise money to get the teachers to kiss pigs.
We just don't have any
Okay.
heartstrings really attached to our project. I mean,
Memorial.
not with these cancer stories.
Oh,
I
right,
mean,
but I
yeah.
mean, that's why I thought, and I mean, they raise,
Well,
each
they're doing
school raises
organizations
upward
to
of
your
$500,000.
Yeah.
They've turned from more of kind of like the single stories, which are, heartfelt, and they're
Yeah,
doing
they're
more
doing causes.
collective.
Yeah,
like,
they
groups and
stopped
organizations, yeah.
doing, because like, I want to say when I graduated in '02, and I know at one point we had like a fellow classmate that had some sort of cancer, and they stopped doing them for individual people because, we heard so-and-so used his money to buy a brand new car, and so they said, okay, well, we're going to start giving them to, the one year they did Angels Foster,
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
One of the groups this year picked the care center, which.
Yeah.
is at-risk
Yeah, so they
kids
pick
that-
places
that
that,
use.
that need
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, so
But
there's,
they
Big
raise
organization.
so much money,
Oh, yeah.
and it's not attributed to, well, company XYZ gave $4,000. I mean, it would be easy to say, thank you, Edmond High Schools.
Well, I think that's a perfect, I mean,
Oh,
obviously
yeah.
Edmond Memorial is named and they actually have plaques there and stuff.
Yeah.
And then those names of those are gonna be put into here as well. That, what it does is it gets another generation to come out and understand what's going on here.
I mean,
And the
it-
importance of why are we raising this money? Oh, well, oh my, they didn't know.
And everybody knows somebody that's in the
In
military.
military, yes, for sure.
Everybody. Oh, my brother, my dad, my
Uncle or next door neighbor.
Yeah,
crazy guy
everybody
down the
has,
street.
and I think it would be kind of cool because like I said, all three of the high schools have never been together. They always have their own thing. And it would be kind of like, oh, let's see who can raise the most. They would get into it. So, but I
I
think
think
that would be kind of a cool
Sure.
idea.
Yeah, and, that's.
I've written one of the grants,
They're pretty
extensive.
intense and like, I mean, you have to be very creative when you present it because, these kids they want to be impressed.
I think there's a story there. I mean, I think there's a story to be told. I mean, in the
So-
sense of creating a dynamic, I think something that reaches out to students. I mean, I think that's something that connects across multiple numbers of families. So I think that can be done.
I've also heard that sometimes they don't give the whole thing to one, and there's a little bit left over, and all three schools sometimes pool that.
Sometimes they do put some to other
Huh?
uses.
That's the common thread.
Yeah, the
Perhaps,
common
yeah.
thread, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's 10%, I think is what they do. And that's their common thread. They all give 10% towards one thing.
And-
One thing.
And I think we have a couple new privates that are on the split option. What that is the Army National Guard allows you to go to boot camp
Come back from
between your
senior year.
junior and your senior year, do your senior year, and then you take off and you go do your AIT and show up to your unit and stuff. So
Mhm.
while they're there, they kind of, what they do. But I mean, there's a couple kids at the school, so when they're going like, well, why should we do this? Like, hey, did you know
Well, and
Mike over here is actually in the military?
North has the Air Force ROTC.
TC, yeah.
But that was just my
No,
crazy
we
idea.
don't.
So.
Got it written down?
Anybody
Yeah.
want to have breakfast with Brett Town, the superintendent first? Take Brett Town out to breakfast? Talk to him.
He'll be the first one to tell you, students do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, those weeks are their thing.
Oh, yeah.
I remember being back, and I'm not sure. I grew up neighbors with I can't think of her first name, her last name is Underwood, but she's on the board.
Jamie?
Jamie Underwood, yeah. And I've known her my whole life, but I'm sure I could bend her ear. I mean, she'd probably be more than happy to sit down and hear about it.
Yeah, I think the important thing would be getting in touch with the students and being able to,
Probably a year before you're actually
Well,
applying.
'cause, yeah, I mean, it's,
They've already-
this year is just now, it's the end of February, so this year is already coming up.
but
so-
they've already
selected,
picked
yeah.
all the
Mhm.
charities and all
Yep.
that.
Well, I think that, you know, and then there's, I mean, are we still talking about like businesses that we want to talk to?
Really, this is just kind of
Well, I
open
mean, I know
discussion.
that, you know, with.
Just know it's being recorded, so don't say.
Yeah, that's
anything.
what I was getting ready to say, so, but I think there's, but again, I think that there's enough business leaders in this town who have either a veteran background or a direct connection, who would be willing to say, yes, my bank, my engineering firm, my whatever, would like to donate, you know, some money, you know, towards this. And just like the gentleman that said here the other day is, I mean, I think that, you know, putting that out because we have such a huge veteran community that raising, let's just say, if we're gonna divide it up a third, raising $1.5 million for one of the baskets is gonna be nothing. I mean, I think that could be done. I mean, if we even have to put it out there on a GoFundMe and throw it out there, I mean, there are people just looking to dump money and everything, little $10 here or there, just, I mean, it adds up. And.
One of the, I know you mentioned Vaults of Honor, one of the people I plan on meeting with is Major Ed Polito.
Yeah.
He lives here in Edmond.
Yeah.
And him and I are pretty good friends, and
We go to
he's
church.
he's a great guy.
Yeah, we go
Love
to church
him
together,
death.
and you want to talk about a guy who could probably get us $5 million
Oh,
overnight.
easy. Drop of a hat.
He'll go hound some people, but I think that there's a lot of organizations out there. I mean, there's, you know, that would love to donate like 1,000 here or there that you'd be surprised about. I mean, you know, I'm sure there's something within each of the branches of service that would say, yes, this is awesome, you know, send them a little packet with the renders and stuff and say this is the purpose and everything. Oh yeah, you know, the National Guard Association, the Air National Guard Association, you can twist their arms for us and everything, so. But I mean, when the Marine Corps Association, you know, if you want to head up the SF, you know, association, you know, and add Purple Hearts of America and all those types of groups and just say, hey, look, we just need $1,000. We're not asking for a ton, but I mean, next thing you know, they start doing that, and then one of these, then all of a sudden you go talk to the Kirkpatrick Foundation, because he was an admiral, and all of a sudden they go, wow, you raised 1.5, well, yeah, we'll donate, we'll match it. And then, I mean, they're done. And-
Sonic,
yeah.
Highland, Brahms.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of those, again, I think raising 3.5 is gonna be pretty easy. And, just-
I have a structural question. So the city can't go out and ask for that money. So what kind of structure will have to be in place for the fundraising?
That's, we were talking a little bit about, and then how's the money held and used and all that sort of thing. We'll probably have to look at what the best way is to manage that moving forward, whether we can do that through a board, through a separate board that is a city board, or if we're gonna be required to set up a separate nonprofit. I don't know.
Friends of the Memorial type, you know, thing that they set up, and just like the Oklahoma Memorial Foundation, is you create a board of directors that meets about once a quarter, making sure the maintenance fund's there, is being funded properly, or do they need to go out and solicit? Say, hey, we need an extra $10,000, let's do some fundraising real quick to kind of get our numbers back up. In case if there's a time when the city, you know, says, hey, look, we got to cut back on some of our maintenance budgets, and everything goes down, and saying, okay, how do we, if you're on the board, how do we pick up that slack and kick some funds in there to kind of bring it back up?
Could also, I probably envision maybe some sort of quasi, almost like the Historic Preservation Trust is very much
Or like a commission, like would
Yeah,
like
yeah,
like
so-
evac or something?
Yeah, we'll need to figure that out, but I think there are ways of doing that, yes.
Because some of those grants will want a 501c3.
Correct, yeah. So we're gonna have to figure out what's the most effective way to manage that moving forward, absolutely.
The council will decide that? City staff?
Staff will probably do most of the work on that, and then they'd run it by the council, through the council. They would ultimately have to vote to create that, but staff would more than likely do the legwork.
Is there anything else at all? Any questions? Anybody like to add anything?
So just on that, just as a reminder, please send me any ideas that you have by the end of next week. So that would be what?
25th.
25th. By January 25th, just please send anything that you may have. It could be the most random idea, that's okay. We'll try to figure out the best way to compile all that.
Well, they built the Statue of Liberty with a penny drive.
Yeah.
There you go.
And one of the things too is,
Penny went further back then.
Yeah. And they were real copper.
in recognition, of course, too, people always want to know, like, what's my dollar get me? And it's like, okay, well, these are the different levels, call it all the way up to,
Realistically, what could potentially happen is if there is a board or trust or something put together, that could be an opportunity for, if there's people that are on this task force, when we start to look to fill something like that, and there are people that are on this task force, you would probably get a very strong look at
Yeah.
being on that. No different than when we had a task force for capital improvements for the expiring penny tax, or half-cent tax, I'm sorry. Some of those people now sit on the capital projects board to help kind of carry forward their work. And so,
and we can always put it.
that definitely could happen.
If they're, on the board, we can put it into the organizational documents that says that there has to be 3 veterans on the board. And so if one expires, then either they gotta give a recommendation, or it's up to whatever ward they live in or whatever, that we can decide all that, and they have to go out and get somebody else to fill that seat, so that way, there's a veteran representation on that board of directors, which I don't think you're gonna have a hard time.
What time was the meeting on the 25th of Feb?
So on February 25th, that's at 4 p.m. That's a city council workshop. They, as of the last meeting, actually put another workshop that day, so it's gonna be a full day. There's a workshop at 3 before you guys now. And so I would highly encourage everyone to be there. I know that council will want to recognize you for your work. So anybody that can be there, please plan to do so. It also, I think, would be a great opportunity to support Matthew while he is presenting as well. So that's going to be February 25th. That's at 4 p.m. And that's at the City Council Chambers, which is 20
So the
South.
workshops before the city council?
It
meeting?
is, yes. So it'd be from 4 to 5, and then they would break and go eat a quick dinner and come back for the council meeting. So 4 p.m. to 5 p.m., 20 South Littler is the address for that.
Would we need to stay for the council meeting?
You would
or
not need to
just
stay for the
workshop?
council meeting, only if you just want to stay and enjoy.
Because we're not gonna be on the council docket technically.
No, you'll have your own dedicated time for the workshop.
Oh, we won't be on the docket for approval that night?
No,
Oh.
there's no official approval or anything like that. This is gonna end with you giving this recommendation. And then from there, they'll figure out where they take that. And so, no, it won't happen that night. It may not happen for 6 months, or who knows? I mean, quite honestly, but it'll be there and it'll be presented and part of what they have to consider moving forward. I will send a reminder out to everyone, reminder email.
Well, we have 15 more minutes until we actually have to be out of here.
You don't have to use them all, though.
So if there's nothing else, I'll give one last thing. Any questions, any comments? Anybody want to say anything? The floor is, I'm moving it to new business open floor. How about that?
I want to say something, and I probably will at the workshop, but since it's just you all here tonight, I really do want to thank you for not only your commitment to working through this and your time, but even all the way back to just your thought of, hey, this is something that I want to apply for and an opportunity to get involved in the community and serve. I know we have a lot of conversations at the staff level, at city council level. How can we always try to find more ways to get people engaged and opportunities to serve? And so it was very important to council to have this as an opportunity. And quite honestly, there's a lot of people in this room, they're on this, sitting around this table that have not had the opportunity to serve in this sort of setting for the city of Edmond. And that was important for the council to make sure that we engage some new folks as well. So I know they'll thank you, but I want to definitely thank you and really appreciate everything that you guys have put into making sure that, I mean, you did it, you made it through. So you got the job done. Great job.
Well, thank you. Anything else? If not, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? All right. Well, thank you, everybody.